Welcome to the State of the Market for Law Firm Sales in 7 minutes. My name is Jeremy Pook, and I lead Senior Attorney Match. In today's In 7 Minutes, we're going to debunk the 3 fears that senior attorneys have when they consider joining growing law firms. In this part 1, we're going to address 2 of the 3 fears, and in part 2, we'll address the 3rd fear as well. So let's jump right into it. The first fear, really a concern that senior attorneys have when they consider selling their law practices to growing law firms, is that all of a sudden they're going to have a new boss. That is, senior attorneys that have been running their law practices, often for decades, really shudder at the thought of, oh my goodness, if I join a new law firm, then I'm going to suddenly have a new boss who's going to be in his or her late 30s, 40s, or 50s. So now let's debunk that first fear about having a boss. Really, senior attorneys do not have bosses when they join growing law firms, because let's look at this name tag, right? The name tag that senior attorneys have when they walk through the door of a growing law firm is, hello, I provide instant client growth to your firm. Because there are really 5 components of value that senior attorneys bring to growing law firms. First and foremost is that client list, right? So when senior attorneys are joining growing law firms, they don't have a boss, because those firms want and need these 5 components of value: the client list, also the referral source list, which together with the client list is the book of business that a senior attorney and a senior attorney-led firm has developed over the course of their careers, the goodwill that a senior attorney has developed, their subject matter knowledge, and more, the digital value of what they bring to the growing law firms that they join. So then the question is, all right, how do they bring over that value, right? Like, you walk in the door, you've got this name tag on that says, hi, I am so-and-so, and I present instant client growth. Well, what we call the flux capacitor to the senior attorney match model is trust transfer. That is, just like that flux capacitor, it brought time travel, right, into the Back to the Future movie. The flux capacitor here is trust transfer in terms of senior attorneys. They introduce the clients that trust those senior attorneys so much to the new lawyers at the firms that they join. Because if the clients trust the senior attorney and the senior attorney trusts the new lawyers at the firm that they join, then the clients are going to trust the new lawyers. So let's just look at that in terms of the 3 ways that trust transfer happens when senior attorneys join growing law firms. It really happens in 3 ways. The first way is in person, right? Let me introduce you to my longtime client in a conference room. Great, old school. New school is via Zoom. Okay, senior attorneys today, if any senior attorneys is thinking to themselves, oh my goodness, I don't want to be in the office so much. Well, you don't have to be, because of the advent of Zoom or Teams or some other virtual way of making these introductions, where senior attorneys can join, let's call it Zoom, join a Zoom meeting with a long-term client, introduce the client to attorneys at the firms that they join. Don't even need to stay in the entire Zoom meeting. Do that handoff, that trust transfer, and your clients are suddenly now in the trust of the new lawyers at the firms that you've joined. And then there's also via social media, right? We mentioned digital value before. Senior attorneys are now joining law firms. They're taking their client list, that all-important value chip of their 5 components of value, and they are adding, the growing firms that they're joining are adding those client lists into customer relationship management software. They're being connected with on LinkedIn, other vehicles of digital communication. Constant Contact is the one that we're showing here, where an e-newsletter can be sent out to the clients and be introducing the clients to the firm, and even lawyers at the firm that the clients can now trust, because the senior attorneys trust those clients. Hence, when senior attorneys join growing law firms and they're transferring the trust of their clients to those lawyers, the firms that they join are not led by new bosses. They're led by colleagues that want and need what you have, which is your book of business, your clients, and your referral sources. When it comes to the second fear that senior attorneys have, that second fear that senior attorneys have when they are considering joining a growing law firm, is that suddenly they're just going to lose control of their work-life balance. It's a concern, okay? We hear it all the time, but it's an interesting concern that we hear because the biggest complaint that we hear from senior attorneys when they're considering succession planning for their practices is they just can't stand managing their offices. So, in terms of how we're going to debunk this fear, it is tied into the fact that when you no longer need to manage your practice, you actually gain a lot more control. We're going to address the debunking. We're going to address the debunking of the second fear in our next part of this episode on debunking the three fears that senior attorneys have when considering joining growing law firms. So when it comes to a preview for that next episode, in the second part of debunking the three fears that senior attorneys have when considering joining growing law firms, we're going to debunk fear number 2, which is that concern over a loss of control. And then we're also going to address and debunk the third fear, which is the fear around a loss of identity. That is, that if you're going to join a growing law firm, that somehow you're going to lose your identity when you join a growing law firm. And that is today's state of the market. And that is today's state of the market for law firm sales in 7 minutes.